Hey everyone, this is Motorcity Mechanic back with another video. Today I want to show you the most common location for a trans leak on an 8-speed transmission. This one's in a Dodge Ram pickup. So we're up under the vehicle, we're looking at the 8-speed transmission, bottom half of it, and as you can see we do have a fluid leak. Some of it's actually been getting on the exhaust. We can also see that it's gotten on the shifter cable, the rubber boot, and it's caused the boot to actually swell. I want to show you a common location, which is actually on the trans heater. You've heard of trans coolers. Well, we've got a trans heater that helps get the temperature up to normal operating temp quicker and faster. So this actually has two 1-inch tubes that connect both the heater and the transmission, and there's O-rings on both ends. We'll more than likely find that we've got a torn O-ring. So what we'll do is we'll work on moving to explaining on how to remove the heater. On this trans heater assembly, we're going to be leaving the coolant line still hooked up. We're not draining the antifreeze. We're just unbolting the 3 bolts that keep it attached to the transmission and pulling it away. That way we can get to the tubes that connect the heater to the transmission. You've got a 10mm bolt here. It's fairly long. You got another one right here. And on the back upper corner there's another. We're going to put a catch pan up under it because we're probably going to lose some of the trans fluid that comes out. But once we get the bolts off, we'll start wiggling the actual heater assembly away from the transmission and we'll get to the tubes. So this is that back upper 10mm on the trans heater assembly. I'm going to go ahead and back that out now. Get a pry bar and get between the heater and the transmission. I'm just going to start slowly working it. Like I said, there's some tubes that go in between. Get it to where it come loose. Now, like I said, you're going to lose some fluid. Make sure you got a catch pan up under. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the shifter cable. We got 2 fasteners. We got one down below here, and we got one right above it. And then we're also going to unsnap the cable where it goes onto the transmission. Use a long screwdriver, flat pry bar, either one will work fine, and we'll move on to the fastener. Let's work on getting both those T40s off, and then the cable will get moved. Once it's moved, you'll get a lot better chance of seeing the tubes I'm speaking of, plus you'll be able to get to them a lot easier. So got one of them off, we'll move on to the other. We got the last bolt out, we've moved the shifter cable. Right here is actually one of the tubes. So there's that heater assembly again. Pry back, you'll see the 2 tubes. Here's one of them right here. It looks identical going in. I'll pull it out and I'll show you. It goes in one way and they look identical. There's no ring on both ends. And what I'm doing is I'm pulling that heater assembly far enough away from the trans to slide a block of wood up in there, just to act as a spacer. That'll give me the room to work on pulling those tubes out now. Gonna get me some long needle nose pliers, grab a hold of one of the tubes, and start wiggling. That's one of them. Like I said, it's about 1 inch long, no ring on both sides, and we got one just right above it. Now, if you look real close, you notice see how this O-ring's distorted. That's where our fluid leak was coming from. Go ahead and double check both tubes. I'm replacing both tubes and the O-rings. But that's definitely where our leak was. Alright, so here's the 2 replacement tubes we're going to be reinstalling. They're identical. There's no difference between up and down. It doesn't matter. But when I go back, I'm going to smear some lube on the O-rings so they go in wet, not dry. Like I said, they're identical. It doesn't matter which way you go as far as up and down. Just definitely lube them up before you install them so we don't damage the O-ring. Now this is the fluid you're going to need to be using. This is 8 and 9-speed ATF offered through Mopar. Now the part number is 6821 89 25 AA as an alpha alpha. Now it goes for approximately $40 a quart. Now like I said, this is the fluid that this specific transmission takes. Now let's go ahead and install the tubes. Like I said, I'm using a long pair of needle nose pliers. Grab about midway. You can either install it in the transmission first or on the heater assembly. I'm going to do the transmission. Once I get it in there, I can press down on the face of it to make sure it's fully seated. Go ahead and grab the second one. We'll do the same thing. Make sure it's lined up right. And make sure you press it to where you feel it completely snap down or fully seated. Just double check your O-rings, make sure there's no damage to them, and make sure you still got some lube on them. And then we'll go ahead and get ready to move the block, and we'll sit the heater assembly back up against the side of the transmission. Alright, so at this point we're going to work on taking the block out of the play. We're going to lift up on the heater assembly, move the block, line up the tubes to the heater, and then go ahead and start pressing down until it's fully seated and bottomed out, just like that. Now we can go ahead and grab our 3 bolts. We got 2 along the bottom edge. We'll get them hand started. Like I said, once we get those 2, we'll also move on to the upper corner as well. Now the torque for these bolts is going to be 18 foot-pounds. Like I said, 18 foot-pounds is the torque on these bolts. And there's no particular pattern you need to follow. Just snug them down to 18 foot-pounds. The last thing I got to do up on here, other than spraying everything off with some brake clean, is I need to reinstall the shifting cable. We got the 2 torque T40s that we're going to be tightening down. And just snug them up. Don't worry about a torque spec. Just snug them up, and then you'll just pop the cable back on. And that will complete the repair, and we'll clean everything off. So there, I showed you what the most common leak is on an 8-speed transmission. Now, once you fix the leak, you're going to have to check the trans fluid level. Now I've got a video just for that. And it's kind of a little bit of a lengthy process, but if you're going to do the repair, you're going to have to add the fluid. So just follow the video step by step once you get the repair done on how to check the fluid, and if you need to add fluid, you'll know exactly how. At this point, ask Frank on thumbs up on YouTube. Don't forget to like me on Facebook, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. If you got any kind of comments or suggestions about anything Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram related, please feel free to email at motorcitymechanic.com, and I'll try to get back to you in a timely manner. Once again, thanks for watching these videos.